Well, good day, everybody. Rod with you again here. Um, was going through a few emails that I got from some subscribers, viewers of my channel, and as always, I entertain questions or ideas, maybe for upcoming videos or chats that I have doing this kind of thing here. Um, Weather's been getting half decent, so I might be able to get out and do some shooting in the near future. A couple of the places that I do go to shoot are still kind of inaccessible or unaccessible with my vehicle. It's pretty low to the ground, so I don't have that luxury of like having a truck or an SUV. I've got a just a four-door Hyundai. Everybody knows how low they are to the ground. So that being said, hopefully soon get some shooting videos. Well, one thing that I seen two or three messages kind of rolling around the same idea, the same, I guess the same concern, I guess you could call it, was buying, old guns and, what's safe to shoot in them, what's not safe, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to briefly, or try to be briefly, normally my videos run into a half an hour or 20 minutes or so, because I want to explain things fully. Some people, aren't aware of certain terms or certain ways of explaining things, so I try to simplify it as much as possible. That way everybody's on the same playing field and everybody understands. So this message that I got was from a gentleman that's from the western part of Canada. Nice fella. Spoke to him before. He's done a little bit of trading with me in the past, and he actually watches my channel. So he messaged me through the email, and he just said, Rod, thinking about buying a couple of shotguns from Inner Surplus. He showed me them. Great shotguns. One of them was a Damascus gun that they have there, an old English gun. The other one was a good quality German gun. Both of them were 12 gauges, but both of them were advertised with 2.5-inch chambers. And he was wondering, A, how hard is it to find 2.5-inch ammo if you don't reload? And B, what's involved to basically make them run. He's got a couple of side-by-sides that are more modern, so you can go down to your local, gun shop and whatnot, and, pick yourself up some 2 3/4-inch field loads. These are older ones, and I'm just using this for reference, but these are a 1 1/4 ounce Eli, or Ely, as you like to pronounce it, field specials. I've had these for quite some time. I got a couple of boxes on them. These are great shells. These things pattern very well. These are a number 4 load, 1 1/4 ounce. It's a bit heavy for partridge, and it's what I was using these for was hunting rabbits into the thick brush. I found the number 4 pellets didn't scatter as much or deflect as much, and I could get a better shot on the rabbits. So that's what I was using these for. Back in when lead was permitted for waterfowling, we probably could have got away with using these, shooting inside the decoys. 1.25 ounces, plenty of lead to knock a bird down for sure. But the modern ones shoot these just fine. But some of the old stuff is short chambered. And I have a couple of examples that I'm going to give you of short chambered guns that I own and what I do to keep them on the range, keep them shooting, and bear in mind to keep them within what they were designed to shoot, pressure-wise, and for for barrel construction. So my first gun I will show here is my JP Sauer. This is a 12 gauge side-by-side, model 11, box lock, built 1906. This gun is still good and tight, no play. Nice and tight. Barrels are in decent shape. This one over here has got a little bit of pitting up in here. These are Krupp steel barrels, so I'm not too worried about it. It's a smokeless proof gun. So the thing is with this gun, it's chambered for 2.5-inch shot shells. So in my local area, and I don't know about others, but in my local area, 2.5-inch shot shells are not very common. So they are available. You do tend to find them from time to time. And when you do, normally it's these rounds here that we'll find on our shelves. These are made by Kent Game Bore. These are Kent Game Bore Pure Gold. These are 2.5-inch, 65 millimeters, as marked right here. I don't know if you can focus and see that, but I'm doing the best I can. 65 millimeters, which is 2.5 inches, and these are loaded in a traditional 1-ounce fiber wad load, number 6 lead shot, and these are around the 1180 to 1200 feet per second. So these are made to be tailored to shoot in the older guns, like this old girl, Now, he was asking, how hard is it to find a buckshot load or a slug load? As a matter of fact, as of recent, I went to a gun shop and we were looking on the shelves, my friend and I spotted these. These are 2.5-inch cellular and Bellot 12 gauge buckshot 00, or as the English call them, maybe I'll turn it up there, you can see it better that way. They call it SG. And now years ago, like my granddad used to have the old shells saying SSG and SG. That was like the British terminology for buckshot, like O buck, 00 buck, 000 buck. So these were on the shelf. These were $23.99 Canadian. Add your tax, 15%, and that's what you got for a full box of 25. And I wasn't even aware they sold these. What's great about them is, number one, when you shoot them, you end up getting reloadable 2.5-inch. I fired this one. Reloadable roll crimped 2.5-inch shot shells, and I can save these up and reload them for my short chambered guns. But here's what they look like prior to their shooting. As you can see, 9 lead balls there, 33 caliber balls, couple of card wads, cushion wads. I'm not too particular on the way these are constructed. The shotgun scientists, Tyler and Josh, said the same thing with the 2 3/4 inch versions that they had. They found that the patterns were a little open, and there was some actual blow-by when you shoot these things, because the velocities kind of were all over the map. They were doing some, I think they were doing some chronograph readings on them, and they were kind of erratic. So, but it was just nice to see these on the shelf. I bought them anyway, just to try them. Now, I didn't really get a chance because of our weather to do extensive testing, but all I did was function test my gun, and I wanted to make sure when I bought this that I had nice solid primer strikes and I had no issues mechanically, and it was great. And this is a dandy old gun, nice gun. But this is an example of something that you see for sale like at Inner Surplus and online. These are imported into the country. So people automatically think, oh, well, it's not Damascus, you can shoot 2 3/4 in it and get away with it. Well, I'm going to tell you that I did try 2 3/4 inch standard field loads in it just to see, 1 1/8 ounce. So nothing crazy, nothing high pressure, but I noticed a substantial amount of recoil difference versus the regular 2.5-inch factory load, or my 2.5-inch reloads of low pressure 700X powder. And if anybody's needing some help with low pressure 12 gauge loads, be more than happy to share some load data with you. Send me an email and I'll pass it along to you. And just for status quo here, what I use is published data. I don't modify it in any way. I keep it from what's in the books. So anyhow, if you obtain the same load book that I had, you can find the data. But if you don't have one, I'd be happy to share it with you and get you shooting and get you on the range. So I tried the 2 3/4 inch loads in it, and I'll tell you, this thing is not very heavy. It only weighs about 6.5, 6 3/4 pounds. And with a butt pad like that, I'm going to tell you, she gave you a thump on the shoulder. A real good one, too. This is what they call a skeletonized butt plate. It's got wood checkering actually in the center here, and this is all metal, so there's nothing forgiving here in the recoil department. That's pretty solid. But follow your when you're looking up on Inner Surplus, follow your ads, your descriptions, I should say, and to get into a 2.5 inch shot shell gun, you're either going to be looking at these or making these. Either way, it's fine. But when you come to make these, you have to get into buying fiber wads, or you can find low data for plastic wads. Mind you, you have to get the wad specific to the 2.5 inch shot shells because they're a little shorter to fit in the shorter hull. Now, I don't use the 2.5 inch wads anyway. The loads that I use, I can still actually use a standard 2 3/4 wad like such. Like this is just a Winchester trap wad. These are like 1 ounce, 1 1/8 ounce. To me, and for my loads that I use, as you can see, you still got lots of room for powder, and you got a bit of room for the roll crimp to come down, and yeah. So these would still technically work as long as they match the powder and primer that you're using in your shot shell, or you can use the traditional fiber wad loads. Do I have any fiber wads out here? I probably don't. I put some stuff away yesterday, and well, I'll just say that I'll use these for an example. These are the overshot and over powder wads that you can use. These happen to be made by Oxyoke, just for reference here. But you use these over your powder, then you put your cushion wad, which is a bit thicker, and then you can, if you want, split one of these over the fiber wad and put your shot, and then roll crimp your shell. Another way that I do it is I will put my powder, and then I will put my powder, put a wad, and then what I'll do, if I don't want to use the piston part of the wad, I'll cut the piston off and use the cup. You get that cup here. And I'll set the cup on top of the fiber wad, and I will use that to help patterning. I found in the past I've got a little bit better patterning. Some people say they don't. In my experiences and in my guns, I found it helped. So I'm just passing on what I experienced, right? So that's another way you can do it. Now, into barrel construction, of course, this is Krupp steel, smokeless powder gun, no problems. Use your regular shot shell powders. Your unique, your IMR blue, red dot, green dot, what have you, long shot. As long as you follow the load book and do it the correct way, you got no problems. But in the case of one of his guns, he wanted to get into a Damascus barrel gun. This is my old Army and Navy. It's my old girl. This is a Army and Navy grade 3 or 3rd quality, as the English would call it, made by P. Webley and Sons of London for the Army and Navy Cooperative, which was an outfit that sold and exported fine quality English guns at affordable prices for mainly retired military, law people like the policemen and whatever. They had, from what I was told, this was sort of where they went to get their things they needed And maybe they got discounts because they were like in the military and whatnot. But it was called the Army and Navy Cooperative, and they sold a lot of stuff. Not only guns, they sold everyday household stuff too. It was like a general mercantile, if you will. But this was one of the things they did. They got top quality makers to let them rebrand or rename their gun, because there's no Webley mark on here. The reason that I know it's a Webley is there's actually a couple of marks under the barrel of the proofs that tell me it is barrel maker and whatnot. But it's marked Army and Navy CSL. So anyway, back to Damascus. This gun is 2.5-inch chamber, tight as a banker's vault, zero play, and this thing's got beautiful bores, but short chambers. But guess what? It's not proved for nitro powder. It's a black powder shotgun, center fire. So we have to bear in mind that when we're going to be reloading, you can't do it conventionally with the with the smokeless powder that I mentioned for the JP Sour. You're going to have to use your either paper hulls, or if you can't find any paper hulls, you certainly can use plastic hulls and roll crimp them as such. These are just old trap loads here, and they were roll crimp for short chamber. They were formerly 70mm shells, is marked right there. It says 2 3/4. But with the crimp cut off them and rolled, these are for 2.5-inch chambers. Now, that's another way also that you can economically make smokeless ones, is you can go to your local Canadian Tire up in Canada here, or local gun stores, and everybody has seen those. Universal Winchester shot shells, the cheapy brand. Steel bottoms, nothing really fancy, nothing to write home about. But these are bulk 12 gauge rounds. You can get them in Federal too. They call them Top Guns. And you can get them in Challengers, whatever. Trap loads, 1 1/8 ounce, standard load equivalents, 2 3/4. But what you can do with them is, I made a video on this, and you can go watch it, improvising 2.5-inch shot shells out of conventional 2 3/4. Won't be cutting this one, but you take a utility knife, and this area right here, where it's just rolled over slightly, you trim this off right here, and you take the crimp out of the shell, and that leaves the top of the shell cut open. So what you do is I dump a little bit of the lead out. It takes it down to about a 1 ounce load. I do not touch the wad. I do not touch the powder. And I'll insert a shot wad like this. I'll take one out and just show it to you. They look like my buddy says, they look like bingo cards, bingo markers. Very thin. You put this over the shot as such, rests on top, and then you use, if you're lucky enough to have a vintage roll crimping tool like this. I've got a couple of these. You can find them online. They're getting kind of expensive now. These are well over 100 years old, and in some cases even more. I've got them in 12 and 16 gauge, that's what my shotguns are. So that being said, there we go. Just had to move the arm. You put once your cartridge is loaded with your powder, your wads, your shot, and your overshot card, you insert it in the machine. Close on it. You see it holds the rim there, and this is attached to a table here, and you roll, applying pressure to this, and when you're done, you pull out your shell, and there's what you get. A traditional rolled crimp shell. It works also for them. It works for plastic shells as well. It takes a bit more turning, as you can see. They will fit in there, and they will roll just nice. A little more effort on your part to get the plastic warm, so you get a nice uniform roll, and you got 2.5-inch shells. So with the black powder, You want to stay away from using these type of wads over the black powder. Black powder and this makes a mess. What it does is every time you shoot the gun with that, a layer of plastic is put onto the barrel's interior. And every couple of shots, there's more plastic and more plastic and more. So what you're doing is you're making the bore smaller and smaller and smaller. So what you're doing is you're raising chamber pressure back here because you're forcing the shell through a smaller constriction, forcing the load of shot out there. So it's going to take more of an oomph to get it out there. The bang is going to happen here, but the pressure is not going to go out as quick as it should. It's going to linger. And some of these barrels are, in this case, pushing 140 years old. Now these happen to be in great shape, but there are those guns out there that have some pitting. You might have a little ding in the barrel, and it might be insignificant as long as you're shooting appropriate pressure and appropriate loads. But when you're shooting home-loaded ammunition with these wads with black powder or a substitute, Pyrex is the same thing because I use Pyrex, it melts. So what happens when you go to clean your gun with the hot soapy water like you traditionally do with a muzzle loader or any other black powder gun, when you're swabbing out the barrels, this big plastic strip comes out. It looks like a tapeworm, but your barrels are spotless inside. And all that plastic and that long piece is residue from the gas seals here burning off of the wad. When the black powder ignites, it gets very hot. It melts all this, so it still forces it out the barrel. But as the barrel cools between shots, that plastic hardens, so it stays in the barrel, and it's gross. But when you use your hot water method with hot soapy water to neutralize the salt effect of the black powder, which is really advisable, that you want to get as much of that residue out of these nice, shiny, beautiful barrels, because if you leave it, that's what starts pitting. So if you maintain these guns from day one with pretty barrels, chances are, as long as the person that gets the gun after you does the same, they'll stay like this. So a lot of those old guns were meat and potato guns. They weren't all cared for like this thing. This thing was babied. So I mean, this thing stayed really good. Amazing condition gun. You guys can see videos on it on my channel. Look up Army and Navy Damascus double, and there's a little bit of history on this gun. And I've got a shooting video with this gun, and this thing is pride of my collection. I love the gun. It's, you know, very expensive to replace as well. You don't see them around a lot. They do come up once in a while. This type of shotgun, this type of action. This is a side lock, as you can see, not a box lock. It's got the side plates here. All the inner workings are here for the hammers and the springs, versus a box lock where everything is internal into here. So this is a little bit more care and effort to get out shooting. We have to bear in mind pressures. We have to bear in mind barrel construction and chamber length. So there's 3 musts you have to follow if you're going to shoot a vintage gun with Damascus barrels like this, or twist barrels, or laminated barrels. They all fall under the same thing. They are a welded construction barrel. In between the welds over time, you can get inclusions. You can get rust spots, you know, if they're not cared for. So again, we have to go through the process. Inspect it. Open it up. Look up those bores. Make sure there's no deep gouges or pitting or dent you can see inside the barrel. Like something fell on the barrel and dented it in. You want to maybe take that to a gunsmith that deals with those vintage guns and ask him, is it possible to get the dent removed, raised out? In some cases it is. In some cases that they try to raise the dent and they actually crack the barrel in the process. So another thing to watch for when you buy these things. Watch for bulges, dents, cracks, delaminating ribs here, and action play. You know, you want to make sure it's good and tight. Not every gun is going to be tight like this one or any other one, but a little bit of play is not terrible. Some guns just have this a smidgen of play. You can get away with it. They just keep the loads light and it's fine. But you get some that are really, really loose and rattly. You might want to take that to a gunsmith, get that addressed. Normally they do some work inside here to the locking area and build the metal back up so the bite surface is nice and smooth and square. So when they close, they lock solid and the barrels are nice and solid to the back of the breech face here. Sometimes you see these old guns, you can see light through here. You hold them up to the light and you look up like this and you can see, you know, you wiggle it around, you can see light, no light, light, no light. Well, that means that there's wear between sometimes the knuckle pin up here or the locking lumps back here. And that's just from age and use. That just tells you the gun was used. So there's no way to get around that. It's old. So another thing we have to watch. But to get back to the topic of that, with short chambers, we have to bear in mind, the example with the Sauer, it is nitro proof, but we have a chamber issue that we have to address. Keep with the same length chamber. If you can't find these, you have to construct them. We went through it, how I construct these. Maybe I'll do a video in the future when I get a nice tabletop to mount my roll crimper here too. I'll make a couple of rounds and I'll show you how I do them, and go on from there. That being said, the other options that are out there and affordable options, and I can recommend, there are still a few of the guns available. You go online and there's been several of this brand taken into the country. People, these are very underappreciated and underestimated guns. These are super quality. You can't buy this anymore. This level of workmanship and quality, you can't. The new stuff just doesn't have that heft, doesn't have that feel, doesn't have that quality feel. And the gun I'm going to mention here is my Husqvarna model 610 side-by-side box lock 12 gauge. This one was built in 1949. This one stayed just like brand new. This is an inter-surplus gun. It's got the factory recoil pad. There's the Husqvarna crown factory sign. This gun does show traces of case colors under here. You can see there ahead of the screw. That's rainbow effect looking metal that people call it. This gun is very tight, hardly used. This thing is basically a brand new gun. I was amazed when I got this thing. Looked up the serial number range. It's 1949. So this gun is chambered for 2 3/4 inch shot shells. So if you want to get into a vintage double and don't want to get into the hassle of loading those or trying to find these, or depending on 2 1/2 inch buckshot, that's harder to locate, you can go to your local Canadian Tire and buy the Winchester Universals and shoot them just as they are. These shoot perfectly A1 in these guns, lead shot. Now, the other thing you have to bear in mind is steel shot is a no-no. No steel shot in these guns. I don't care what people say, oh, you can use a little shot and get away with it. No. Steel shot wasn't made when these things were around. So, obviously, it wasn't designed to shoot steel shot. This was a lead shot gun, or a softer form of shot. Now, people use bismuth these days for hunting ducks. Perfectly fine in this. As long as you load them in accordance with the load manuals and keep in with the standard pressures of the gun. I wouldn't be going pounding big magnums for this gun, but it is perfectly fine to shoot loads like this. 1 1/4 ounce are fine. This is perfectly fine. You go to a gun show and you find some old boxes of 1 1/4 number 4 shot, they will work just A1 in these guns. And these are very affordable. I got this gun in the... Look how tight that is. Look. That's just like brand new. Like, it's unbelievable. And the bores are mirrors. Brand new. This is choke modified in full, I believe. Yeah, modified in full. Modified in full, I think it was when I bought this on the receipt that I got. Anyhow, 2 3/4 standard loads, Husqvarna model 610. I got this gun shipped to my door for $404. There's no way you could replace that with a gun of its quality. Beautiful workmanship, beautiful checkering, nice walnut, nice metal, beautiful bluing, and an overall great gun. Not a mark on them barrels, not a dent, not a ding, not a pick, nothing. So, you know, the guns are out there to be had. These are some options if you don't want to load 2 2.5 inch, that you can buy 2 3/4 factory shells. You can also shoot slugs in this with no problem. You can also shoot 2 3/4 buckshot. But here's the catch: if you decided you want to shoot 2.5 inch shells, no problem. You can shoot these buckshots in there if you have them. You don't have to keep them for a 2.5 inch gun. They also shoot in a longer chamber, but not advisable to shoot them in a shorter chamber, like a 2-inch chamber, which they did make some of these back then. But recapping here, what I'm saying is that when it comes to buying, like what he mentioned, a couple of 12 gauges, that's what you have to bear in mind. Short chambers, barrel construction, type of ammunition, and give your gun a once over. Give it a good a look before you decide to, no pun intended, pull the trigger and make the purchase. There's nothing worse than dumping money into a gun and finding out that it needs a ton of work, or that the barrels are in too bad a shape to do anything with, and now you're stuck with a wall hanger or something that you have to find another barrel set if it's possible, or sleeve them, and that gets really costly. Another example I have of a gun that was chambered for a cartridge and now has been rechambered. This was also an inter-surplus gun. This is my GE Gold box lock English double 12. As when I bought this, the gun was in excellent shape. Nice vintage recoil pad on it. I've done a video on this. Prince of Wales grip. You'll notice here there's a reinforcing bolt. That's not put there because the stock was broken. That was put there for a reason. And I'm just going to put this down for 1 second. Oh, and just set one aside. I don't want to drop things here. Oh. So what we will do is the following, is talk about this. So when I bought this gun, I looked on the site, and just to show you that she's clear, nice clean barrels too. So when I bought this gun, it was advertised having 2.5 inch chambers. So I went into this knowing that it was 2.5 inch chambers, and that I was able to shoot I can make 2.5 inch ammo for it. So I had no problem buying this gun. So when I got it home, I started looking at it, and I'm always looking at proof marks. The English people, where this was made, it's an English gun, they always proof their guns, and they have all the markings underneath the barrels for chamber lengths, bore diameters, chokes, and whatnot. But one thing it said on here was that this gun has been re-sleeved, which means these are brand new barrels, and when they re-sleeved this gun, they re-sleeved it and rechambered it to 3 inch. So this gun is proofed for 1.5 ounce loads, 3 inch. So they turned this into a duck gun, basically, from an upland gun. And they put this reinforcement bolt here to prevent the stock, which is fairly slender, as you see, from splitting. And this one is not split. This one's in beautiful and tight as a drum condition. I bought this gun for $440 plus applicable taxes, but I don't think they knew about the sleeved because it wasn't mentioned in the ad. So I would say that this probably would have commanded a premium had they known, because you don't see this very often with English doubles. 3 inch wasn't a big thing over there. 2.5 was, and 2 3/4. But not many doubles were in 3 inch back in the time period of 1908 when this gun was originally made. That being said, you luck out sometimes, and now you have a gun. If you bought this, you can shoot a 3 inch load, a 2 3/4 inch load, or a 2.5 inch load at a value price, and you got a quality gun. This is a great gun. Nice Prince of Wales grip here. It's got the traditional English blued floor plate. Screws are timed on the same angle as you see. And overall, just a nice gun. And I'll go over in a second here what sleeving is. Sleeving is when they take a portion of the barrel here, chop it, and then they will turn a section of the new barrels down to fit inside these old stubs. And they'll come all the way back into the breech face here, and you can see where they were silver soldered in place here. It's hard to see from there, but take my word for it. So they were sleeved and silver soldered, new ribs were fashioned, and you've got a brand new set of barrels. So initially a repurposed gun, and you look at the beautiful condition that's in. Another pride of my collection. The GE Gold side by side English 12, choked, improved cylinder, and modified. They kept the chokes a bit more open. So yeah, another gun that was bought at Inner Surplus, value priced, smokeless steel barrels, and beautiful condition for a bargain. That's what you can run into when you luck out. That doesn't happen all the time. Usually their descriptions are very accurate, and when they describe their conditions, sometimes they overemphasize things, like a barrel ding is virtually nothing, or a crack behind the tang is barely visible. And I ran into that. They're just being open and honest. They don't want you to be shocked. They'd be like, oh, it's got a crack, So that's great on them. Excellent products they have there, well described. One more thing I will mention here. Now, in the case of a 16 gauge, if that's what you want to get into, they had lots of 16 gauges there, and this one here was also advertised as 2.5-inch chambers. This is my French MAT, side by side, very tight. Clean bores, just like new, very tight. This is a beautiful made French gun, very light, but when it was advertised with 2.5-inch chambers. So again, I got into the proof marks, flipped it over, and saw that it was stamped 67 millimeters, which would mean that the chamber lengths are 2 9/16. Back in the day, that was a common thing for 16 gauge to be chambered 2 9/16. Just a shade under that 2 3/4 mark. Most ammo these days is 2 3/4 inch for 16 gauge. You can luck out and find old, like in Canada here, old Imperial. These are actually 2.5-inch Imperial Dominions. I was going to reload this one. But these are old paper roll crimp shell smokeless powder. They work great in this gun. This gun actually shoots them very well. But what I've done is, a friend of mine had a whole bunch of these Remington Dove and Quail black high brass hulls, great for reloading. And when I measured these opened, even though they are 2 3/4 inch on the box that he had, these measure 2 9/16. I measured 3 different brands of 16 gauge ammunition: Winchester, Federal, and Remington. They all measured out to 2 9/16 inch, even though they said on the box is 2 3/4. I just think they indicate that it's to be used in a 2 3/4 inch chamber, nothing shorter per se. But this gun's got 2 9/16 chambers. These things fired open are 2 9/16. So in theory, with this gun, you can go out and shoot regular 2 3/4 branded ammo. And in this case, these measured out to 2 9/16. I tried it in different styles of ammunition: high brass, low brass, and some other ones, and they all measured within a hair of 2 9/16. None of them measured 2 3/4 at all. None of them, not one. So I think that's just an industry standard. So for the most part now, companies advertise 2 3/4 chambers. A lot of these old guns people are shying away from because of the fact they say 2.5 inch. Guys, don't turn down a chance to get yourself something like this. I got this gun for $295 plus taxes shipped to my door. It came to a little over $350. And I mean, this is nice condition, shoots great, works fine, tight, nice condition. It had a few little minor handling marks, but you know what? For that money, I can live with it. I'm very happy with it. And it's got some floral engraving there, made from France. The screws are timed straight, European quality. This gun also has the monoblock type chambers, or they call it chopper lump barrels, which are on high-end guns usually. So maybe back in the day, this particular model might have been a higher grade gun. I did some research on it and found out that this particular model was the higher up model, but it wasn't their best model. It was their higher up. Then there was one that was really up there that had gold inlays and everything into it. This one happens to be made by the manufacturer National d'Armes Toul in France, and they were a well-known big outfit, made quality guns, various gauges, hammer guns, hammerless, and that's the long and the short of it. So, guys, don't turn a blind eye to the guns you see at Inner Surplus. I mean, at a glance, 2.5-inch chambers, the first thing you think, oh, well, I can't get shells for it no more, is why they're cheap. Well, I got shells for it, and I got it shipped to my door, and I've taken it out. Also, guys, there's a shooting video with this as well, just for demonstration when I first got it, for function. And I mean, guys, this is the shape I got it in. So, I mean, you check it out. $295. Where do you find nice double-barrel shotguns these days in the market and economy we have for $295? Well, in Canada, we are just so lucky to have these guys here. Can't talk good enough about them. Nice guys to deal with. They're not paying me to advertise for them. I just appreciate the fact that I bought several guns there, and there was no surprises, no issues, and they were always there to answer questions. So look them up. Inter Surplus, Quebec, Canada. Give Dennis a call. Talk to one of his staff or himself. Send him an email. Give them a SKU number and ask some questions, and you'll get an answer for sure. So, guys, just wanted to touch base on that about buying these shotguns with shorter chambers. Are they a waste of money or not? You be the judge. And I don't think they are. Maybe other people think they're, a thing from time past. Well, they are. They're from a period we'll never see again. You'll never see build quality like this again. It's just the way the price of materials now. You could not build this gun for under $2,000. You just couldn't do it. So, enjoy the day, guys. I'm out. I'm going to upload this. And we will see you in the next one. And again, like and subscribe. You guys have any more questions or want to know anything particular about certain guns I own, drop a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I'm able. And again, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you later.